Welcome to Tech Titans, where industry leaders share insights of their success stories across the African technology landscape and how they've been able to maintain their tempo and stay at the top of their game and also leave their marks in the sands of time. I'm Ibukun Bankole. Today, I have a captain of industry in the digital payments ecosystem. He has been able to contribute to Africa's digital financial expansion. And speaking of Mr. Adeyinka Adeyemi, he is the founder and CEO of Intermarc Consulting. Thank you very much for being my guest today.
Thank you.
So how did your journey begin? I mean, it's over 2 decades of being in this landscape.
All right, so thank you again for having me. How did my journey begin? I guess I was there at the right time when payment system was, evolving in a transformative manner using technology. So when you talk about payment, you will recall that it basically, particularly in the 90s, was essentially cash-based, and then due to modernization and globalization that crept on, the world, we started to realize from developments in other ecosystems, other economies, that there are significant movement away from cash, and that obviously was meant, as it were, to bring more convenience, more security, more speed into transactions. And obviously all of that will result into a better life for people generally on the face of the earth. So we saw that at the time, and this had been going on for some time in Europe, and coming home to Africa, more in South Africa. So we went out, did some studies. At the time, I was in the banking industry. And I actually took the plunge, went out and looked at what was working with respect to modernization in financial services, cards, basically at the time, ATMs, POS terminals, and those were quasi, technologies that were not full-blown digital, but they were, if you like, middle ground to transition from cash to digital, because those systems at the point still had elements of cash. Do you understand? So you will have a card issued by the bank or your financial service provider. You would then, rather than go to the banking hall to draw cash, still go to the ATM. Right? But this time it was 24/7 access to your money. And that was the beginning of that journey. And then we started to look at, of course, POS terminals, and we saw how it provided convenience in those ecosystems or economies where, they were largely in use. And we thought to ourselves, at the time working in the bank, to say, look, we have to bring this experience to Nigeria, right? We've seen it work, like I said, in South Africa and Europe and so on. We needed to bring it to Nigeria. So we were able to convince management at the time, and then invested in a solution called CashPoint 24/7. And that was the division that I headed as an AGM in 1999 in the bank, where I looked after the e-banking. We used to call it electronic banking division. And then we rolled out a couple of ATMs. We were very excited about it. And what we did was not just to roll them out within the bank branches, but also to take them to commercial, locations with more, footprint of customers,
Yes.
and we just created the vibe in the community at the time. And that really was an experience. And truly, that was the journey. That was the beginning of the journey into digital, banking, if you like. Because things just moved on from there to newer technologies, and today people are talking of AI and so on. But that's the journey.
All right. So I'm sure that there were challenges along the journey of actualizing digital payments like electronic banking and the use of ATMs. What was the significant thing that you took away that helped you to become better as you grew in your career?
So, like I said earlier, I developed a passion for this because maybe in my interactions with colleagues and partners in those countries where this was already gaining ground, I realized that this was a thing of the future, right? And here we are 20, 25 years down the line, really, from when, I got, into that space or into that industry. I've been proven right because what we saw that kept us has, played out so significantly over the years. And this is driven more by the fact that the world is becoming smaller in terms of the connections and the leverage that existed, such that you could transcend borders in terms of payment. Today we talk about cross-border, transactions because technology knows no borders, really. In terms of the things that I saw that has kept me is the market. Basically, we just saw, a green field, if you like, to say in Nigeria at the time, there was a lot of cash moving around to the extent that people will have cash stacked under their beds in the millions. People will have cash stacked at home in the millions. And that really was because the banking system at the time was really not, optimized. People would go long queues and all of that at the time. I mean, there was an advert, back in the day where you find somebody carrying his mat to the bank to say, maybe I will even sleep here.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And we knew that wasn't sustainable. And here now comes a technology or several different technologies that would disrupt banking, or if you like, disrupt payment or the way we did business at the time. We saw all of that, and we knew that we're in for a brilliant ride in terms of the transformation and the disruptions that was just about to happen.
So now one thing I can pick from what you said is foresight, being able to see into the future or pretty much make projections, assess where you are, and so that you can know how to fit in and how to cash in on opportunities. And that's very key because that's one of the reasons we have tech titans, for tech enthusiasts to be able to see and pick one or two things. And so right now what you can think of is you need to start making projections. You need to start assessing, where am I? Okay, so what are the opportunities based on what you said now?
Correct.
Over the years, you've founded different initiatives. And one of the key ones at this time is the Digital Pay Expo. Can you tell us about that journey into, starting Digital Pay Expo?
All right. So Digital Pay Expo actually is a product of the industry and the quest for knowledge. So again, like I said, started rolling out POS terminals, rolling out ATMs, and people call to ask. I'm talking about my colleagues in different banks who had seen what we had done and just wanted to know, so they could do position papers to management to get approvals to do the same thing and so on. And I started engaging at one-on-one basis until it got to a point where we sat down and said, look, you can set up a business around this and set up conferences, to actually enlighten the industry a lot more, bring, experts from different countries to share their own experiences as well. Because our experience at the time maybe was not enough to create the sort of impact that Nigeria needed, because we had not done it long enough. But there are people who have done it long enough as at that time that needed to come and share with us as an economy what their journeys were. So we started, in 2020 to bring these guys on board, and it was really, exciting. And here we are, 24, 25 years after, still going strong with that. And the reason is payments and banking are so dynamic that the customer experience must constantly change, right? And that's on the one hand, and I can tell you a bit more about that. But on the other hand, is because technologies are also constantly changing. Transformative technologies constantly change. The market, also very dynamic, constantly change. Today, you talk about Gen Zs, you talk about millennials. What these guys need and want in this generation is different from where we're coming from. So we must continue to evolve, as the demand in the market evolves. Technology also then follows that pattern to say, what does the market want? And then technology also follows, that. And that is why, year in, year out, year on year, we developed a template that works, where we look at this too, the industry in terms of technology, the market in terms of the requirements, and then we put a conference together to say, yes, this is where we are today, but be mindful that it's going to change in the next 2 to 3 years. So let's talk about what is coming. And that really has been.
That's very interesting, knowing where you are, knowing what the future holds.
Correct.
Still projections.
Yeah.
All right, now, we live in a world where humans need to coexist.
Yeah.
Now, how have you been able to balance family life, relationships outside work, and working full time and managing different businesses, whether as a board member or as a founder?
Well, I must be honest with you, it's very hectic, but you just have to find the balance. And once you find the balance, then you're good. So I'm immersed in work all day until I get home, right? I get home a bit late, typically, and it's now family time, right? And when it's family time, my kids are, and my wife, very important to me, especially for my, stability and so on. So you give them the time. And when it's, obviously, if you have to do a bit more work, after everybody's gone to bed, you can then pick it up from there. But it's an interesting mix, to be honest with you, because you know that is why you're doing what you're doing anyway. So it's a mix of, okay, so I'm engaged productively for my family, right? And once everybody understands that cycle, it just keeps the energy going, basically.
All right, so let's get back to career.
Yeah.
Now, as a board member, you're sitting on several boards.
Yes.
How are you able, because at that level, it's pretty much maybe more like strategy.
Yeah.
And so what exactly does it feel like? What is it at that level? Because I know there are a lot of individuals who are hoping that someday they would grow through the ranks and get to that point where they can give their professional advice to different companies. What does it feel like, and what really does it take?
All right, so thank you very much for that question. Yes, I sit on a couple of boards, and my focus when I sit on boards is corporate governance. I'm actually, right now doing a doctorate in corporate governance, doctorate in business administration, but with emphasis on entrepreneurship and innovation. And my interest in entrepreneurship and innovation is corporate governance. So I'm writing a book around corporate governance and the impact of fintech SMEs. I call them fintech SMEs in Nigeria. Now, having said that, sitting on the board is a matter of strategy, which means the board has a vision for the company. Within a span of time, say 5 years, you have the vision to take this company from a certain position, call it A, and another position, call it C, right? And therefore, in between those positions, what does management do to get there? So you begin to interact with management to say that on the different strategic, levels, we need to ensure we do, all of this so that we can get to that position. And once that strategy framework has been developed, as a board, you then need to sit regularly. I mean, the regulation says you sit quarterly. That's the CAMA, Corporate Affairs Regulation. You sit quarterly to then oversee. So it's an oversight function to say, are these guys on track with respect to, number one, the strategy to get to point C. Number two, is the company on track with respect to compliance. Compliance means in every industry, you have rules and regulations, you have bodies of, or entities providing governance, and you don't want to run foul of those so that you don't get, slammed. And it's also, not a good thing for organizations to go against, what the laws or regulations say. So as a board, you sit and look at all of those different things from the strategic point of view, from the compliance point of view, from governance point of view, even the issues around HR, issues around operations, issues around, the business, management or management itself, and you want to be sure that we're on track. Leave management another 3 months, come back, we're on track. So it's a check, really, that's the role that you play.
Pretty much checks and balances.
Correct.
Still governance.
Yes.
Okay, right now, moving away from corporate governance to e-governance.
Yes.
So you started the African e-governance conference initiative. Can you tell us about that and what birthed that?
Right. I'm excited to talk to you about this because right now, it's more like again, transition from digital financial services, which is a part of the entire digital transformation, space, to a bigger set. Bigger set in the sense that Africa e-governance is a vision to ensure that Africa as a continent develops in line with the agenda that the forefathers, current leaders have rolled out, have designed, to say that by 2063, and this is talking about the Africa Union Agenda 2063, we want to see an Africa, right, that we want. So it's called the Africa We Want. That's the name of the agenda, the title of it. If you're looking forward, which is what we like to do at Intermarc Consulting, look forward, project forward into 2063. That tells you automatically that everything has to be digital. And like I just said, the example I gave, if you look at the millennials, the Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, and the generations coming after that, they live on the net, they're digital natives. Do you understand? So any sector and every sector must be totally transformed digitally to the extent that You hardly will have physical transactions or physical interferences when it comes to relationships between people or businesses. That's what we see down the road. To make that happen, however, there's an elephant in the room, and that elephant is governments across Africa. So how does that transformation start with government, which is where you got the Africa e-governance conference, right? Which is to say to leaders in Africa, to say, look, you designed this agenda. You must start with yourselves. Government or governance must become engaging digitally. So there's what you call citizenship engagement or citizen participation. Example, our business is in Lagos, we have operations in Abuja. Our business is in Lagos, we have operations in Kigali, we have operations in Lusaka, we have things we're doing in Nairobi. We don't have to leave Lagos to be able to consume transactions with government in Abuja, which is where the seat of government is, right? Or with any federal agency or federal parastatal. If we have a framework and an implementation of digital governance in place. I'm very happy that the current minister for digital economy has taken that bull by the horn by coming up with the Digital Economy and E-Governance Act, right? Which once fully, passed into law, mandates all government agencies to follow the digital governance framework or the digital economy framework, which will now become law. And that just makes life easier for everybody. Again, what we have learned in finance, in digital finance or digital payment, where you can do anything on your mobile phone, on the internet, and life goes on. That is what we're saying to governments across Africa that we need to see. That is what the Africa we want speaks to. Where people don't have to leave their, comfort zone, travel hours, miles, thousands of miles in some cases, because I want to have access to government. I don't have to. Not in the future that we see.
So ease of transactions with government.
Exactly.
I mean, that's because I know in recent times there's still a complaint about passports, getting your passports. I mean, all these with e-governance implementation, I believe that this would ease out.
It will disappear. Well, with the challenges we know, but that will be teething challenges. Because we'll have, over the period of time, it will all ease out. And talking about passports, I mean, the minister in charge of internal affairs done fantastic with respect to the passport.
Yeah.
Today, I mean, I've seen different commendations to him to say, see what Nigeria is doing now. You can apply online passport, pay for it. That is how every element and aspect of government should be, really. And we're saying that we need to work with government, not just as consultants, but we're also working with development partners. We're also working with stakeholders in that ecosystem. One of the stakeholders we're working with is the United Nations, for instance. The United Nations also have an agenda called Agenda 2030, which speaks to the title, Leave No One Behind, right? So, we're just excited, to be honest with you, working with these organizations to say, we don't want to leave anybody behind in Africa. But the only way you can, deliver on that promise is technology. Just create the enabling environment, ensure that government services are online. I mean, we've seen this work excellently in Rwanda, right? About 80% of their services today, government services, are accessible, online. Do you understand? And you can tell how much cost saving, how much peace of mind, how much ease that brings to the system. So I think I should take this opportunity to just address, leaders and heads of governments and their enablers should be conscious of the fact that Africa truly can leave no one behind in the quest for development and growth. The only way to do that is to ensure data transformation in terms of governance and to also provide the enabling environment for all the sectors, which really is what the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations speak to. So we can apply digital to each of those 17 goals, from education to healthcare delivery, to agriculture, to climate change, to name it. We can deploy, technology so that people can have access to all of these, services, and life becomes better and easier and more livable for us as Africans. We see this happen in different, countries all over the world. Why not Africa? Food for thought. Thank you.
Food for thought. I hope you caught that and you're thinking. Now, speaking of food for thought, what's your advice for Africans in this dispensation? The millennials, the Gen Zs, even the baby boomers, Gen X. What is in terms of projection that you keep raising, how should we as Africans position ourselves as individuals now?
When I think about Africans, we're blessed. We are blessed because of the gene that we carry. We're very resilient, yes, but we're also very educated and knowledgeable. And education doesn't mean you've gone to school. Education means you're exposed. Most of the exposed people in this world are Africans. I can tell you for free. Now, if you look at the level of development, you can say it's slow compared to the Western world, but if you look at the composition of individuals within the entities called nations, you will see that there's a lot that is inbuilt. All the average African needs is the environment to exhibit what they have. Technology is an enabler in that respect, right? Which is why we like to say that if governments don't want to do anything else, just ensure that, for instance, as broadband, for instance, you enable Internet of Things, people, whatever generation, with a laptop, with phones, can create stuff. In entertainment, in art and craft. African economies explode because we have a talent pool in Africa, right? And we see this obviously when, and Nigerians especially stand out in that respect, go overseas, either sports or entertainment or, professional fields of study, medicine, law, we excel. And not just Nigerians, same with Ghana, same with Kenya, same with, right? We're always excelling because we have something in our DNAs that just doesn't make us accept. Do you understand? A lot of the times we do nothing because we're not empowered. And I believe that technology is that empowerment that the African needs to be able to do wonders.
Wow. Technology is what Africans need to do wonders.
Yes.
I mean, that's very instructive. Now, you've been in the industry for over 2 decades.
Yes.
What is that thing you want to be remembered for? 100 years, 200 years, and they're still speaking, just as, people are talking about Mandela, Fela, and other people.
So in just to put it in a phrase, I probably would like to be remembered as a digital transformation trailblazer or pathfinder in that respect for Africa. And that's why today we're in meetings with the African Union, NEPAD, we're in meetings with and even have an agreement with the United Nations Sustainable Development Growth Center for Africa, where I've had meetings with the government of Zambia, the government of Rwanda, in Kenya as well, just basically preaching the gospel of digital transformation and why governments should be encouraged, well, through peer reviews, to encourage other countries within Africa that are not following the path. For instance, in Zambia, they have a structure called Smart Zambia, and that's the government initiative to ensure that the people of Zambia go digital. Not just the elites, but cuts across, every sector. In Rwanda, they have a company called the Rainbow, again, a government initiative that just is driving digital, every sector of the economy, right? We want to see those sort of things happen across Africa so that by 2030, which it sounds like a magic year, everybody is having a plan 2030, right? For this, 2030 for that. By 2030, we should be able to measure, right, in a scientific manner and see truly where we are as a people in Africa and what are those enablers. Technology is clearly one, but are there other enablers that have impacted our lives or that have taken us out of the woods in Africa? They say Africa is a jungle, really. But we believe that the superhighway is also here, right? So that's really what I'd like to be remembered for, just a champion for digital transformation across, not just in the financial services space, but also across the different sectors in Africa. Thank you.
That's pretty interesting. Thank you so much for your time and for opening our eyes, particularly on e-governance.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And also reminding Africans that we can be anything. With technology, you can achieve anything. Too much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, that's all on Tech Titans today. My name is Ibokumba Ankole. Remember, you can achieve anything. Begin to maximize technology today and you see how your life transforms. Join us again for another interesting edition of Tech Titans. Bye-bye.